My wife and I recently were in one of those discussions that filled the empty space. You know what I'm talking about? She was doing her makeup and her hair, and I was merely present, making the most of the moment by replying with lots of mm-hms and yeps. A benign conversation that really holds no significance to the rest of the world, but it lets us strengthen those little ties that bind us a bit. She was talking about a friend of hers whose young child is in that transition stage when it comes to sleeping. I think the unofficial stages start with the newborn in a bassinet, if you used a bassinet, progressing to a crib, then a big boy or a big girl bed, accompanied with plenty of story times, hoping your precious angel passes out during one of those dozen or so literary masterpieces chosen for the evening. And then it gets tricky. It ventures into that realm where the uniqueness of the bedtime routine is extremely dependent upon the uniqueness of the kid. My oldest is 12, so from her parents, she gets the old, "All right, Charlotte, we're out. Don't stay up too late." It is the 21st century with all the digital world at her fingers, so her tech-savvy father has already ensured all devices are shut down by 9 p.m. Those parental controls, they are game changers, I promise you. If she doesn't want to or can't go to sleep, since there's not a TV in her room or actually in any bedroom in my house, her only options are to lie there and stare at the ceiling, read a book, or here's a novel idea, just go to sleep. Now, before you give me a hard time about not having TVs in any of our bedrooms, I'd like to preemptively counter that conversation with the fact that the house that I live in, I paid for the whole thing. Well, I'm paying for the whole thing. Unlike my childhood, my adolescence, and my dorm room days, I'm no longer confined to one room of the house. All of the square footage in this abode, it's all mine. I have a place where I eat, a place where I sleep. I have a place where I read, a place where I watch TV, a place where I can work, and a place where I can remind my children that they have homework to do. So go do it. This notion does not require you to own a mansion or a castle. It just requires some intentionality. And this is where we get into habits. We sometimes think that habits are something that trip us up, that get in the way. And some of them can. Now, you can develop bad habits, but in this world full of binaries, you can also develop good habits. And if you're intentional about it, the habits you desire to possess can be the habits to which you are attributed. If we're not intentional, your habits will be passive. And if you are passive, you'll be the product of someone else's doings. So our friend's oldest child, much like my oldest child, had little to no issues when traversing through the bedtime stages. It's like clockwork, only better. But the second child, it's always that second child. This is a different story. As he grew, he kept coming down the stairs, just like he did when he was little, into his parents' bedroom. It wasn't a real issue at first, but he's officially reached the age where most people would say he's just too old to do that. My son, who was listening to the previously mentioned benign conversation of which he was not a welcomed participant, asked why someone the age of the other boy would still get up in the middle of the night and climb in bed with his parents. That gave us the opening to talk about habits. Now, my son and I, we work together no matter the age difference that we have to either break bad habits or form good habits. Good truth to share with each other while mom finishes her hair and her makeup. But it also gave us a chance to have the conversation a good many adults need to have with themselves. The habit of climbing in bed with the parents as a 10-year-old might seem a little out of the norm, but it's a situation that lives within someone else's household under someone else's watch. Too often, those on the outside looking in, they like to show off how much they know and how much their advice is worth. But I don't know, if they were to look at their own lives, how many details of their personal narrative would be guarded? How many of those details would elicit commentary from their fellow better-than-yous? How often are they, really, how often are we, caught checking out the specks in other people's eyes when we're very much putting the log in our own eyes on the back burner? It goes back to habits. Now, I'm a big fan of James Clear, and if you haven't read any of his books, I highly encourage you to do so. He talks a good bit about what he calls the habit loop. He says there are 4 parts of the loop. There's the cue, the craving, the response, and the reward. Here's a small example of a habit of mine. This is one I've practiced for quite a while. Every day when I get home from work, I tend to walk through the door, hang my keys up, because if I don't hang them up, I'm going to lose them. I make some sort of loud acknowledgement to my kids, to the dogs, and to the wife. But here's the habit. After I put my bag down in the kitchen, I make my way to our little pantry. I grab a large handful of snack mix. A snack mix, by the way, that has evolved over close to 20 years, and I proceed to munch on said snack mix. This is all done typically within minutes of dinner. The cue, I get home. The craving, that ever so delicious snack mix. The response, I actively move towards said snack mix. And the reward, I eat the snack mix. It's not a make it or break it habit, but it's right before dinner. And moms all over the world have been proven close to right, I guess. I may not ruin my appetite per se on a daily basis, but I certainly alter it. Now, my dog knows what comes her way when that happens as well. It's her habit. Dad gets an extra large handful of snack mix, and Bess makes her way into the pantry. She gets most likely one of the circle pretzels. Cue, craving, response, reward. If I don't give her some sort of crunchable portion, she looks at me confused, to be honest. Altering or changing a habit is not easy. The habit itself is so ingrained in our goings that to alter that habit requires near hyperbolic yet intentional change. So while it's so easy to criticize the actions of others or question why they do that, what we should really be examining is why I must express my unsolicited opinion, and more importantly, why I feel my opinion carries enough merit that I should Monday morning quarterback someone else's life situation. You've got a few weeks to go until society forces upon you the need to make resolutions for the new year. You know you'll break them. You set yourself up for failure from the start. Lose weight, work out more, read more, write more, stop eating this, stop drinking that, take up a new hobby, learn how to do that thing you told yourself you'd always wanted to learn how to do. There's no nuance to it either. There's either yay or nay, black or white, success or failure. But what if instead of setting ourselves up for the all but guaranteed failure, we focused on hyperbolically altering our triggers and our habits? What do we have to lose? All that bitterness, all that animosity? More importantly, here's the question. What do we have to gain? The simple answer, plenty.